The presidents of Penn, MIT, and Harvard were unable to affirmatively testify that calling for the genocide of the Jewish people violates their respective universities' code of conduct. I knew I had to look at the codes of conduct myself. More specifically, these universities were asked whether calling for the genocide of the Jewish people violates their harassment or bullying policies. Here's Harvard's. Harvard defines bullying as harmful interpersonal aggression by words or actions that humiliate, degrade, demean, intimidate, or threaten an individual or individuals. Below you'll see examples of bullying, the first being abusive expression directed at an individual or individuals, such as derogatory remarks, epithets, or ad hominem attacks that are outside the range of commonly accepted expressions of disagreement, disapproval, or critique. So let's reframe the question posed to the president of Harvard in the terms of Harvard's own policy. Does calling for the genocide of Jews or any group of people constitute abusive expression outside the range of commonly accepted expressions of disagreement, disapproval, or critique? I'll let you answer that. Moving on to MIT. Harassment is defined as unwelcome conduct of a verbal, nonverbal, or physical nature that is sufficiently severe or pervasive to create a work or academic environment that a reasonable person would consider intimidating, hostile, or abusive, and that adversely affects an individual's educational, work, or living environment. Again, let's reframe the question in these terms. Is calling for the genocide of the Jewish people, or any group of people, severe or pervasive to create a work or academic environment that a reasonable person would consider intimidating, hostile, or abusive, and that would adversely affect that person's educational, work, or living environment? I'll let you answer. And Penn's code of conduct is the most vague of them all. Subsection D says the university condemns hate speech, epithets, and racial, ethnic, sexual, and religious slurs. However, the content of student speech or expression is not by itself a basis for disciplinary action. While Penn's code of conduct is pretty vague, they did post this press release on October 28th following the start of the most recent conflict between Israel and Hamas, and here's what it says. Hate speech is very hard to define in a way that would allow institutions to address it. Even if we could define it, we could not prevent or punish hate speech because it is protected under the First Amendment. Side note, private institutions are not bound by the First Amendment. They continue, while as a private institution we are not subject to the First Amendment, the university's policies have embraced these values. It continues saying universities can invest their efforts and resources in educating their members and creating spaces and context for productive dialogue, but they cannot punish members who choose not to participate in productive dialogue or who profess bigoted and other hateful views. We can address classroom speech and behaviors that disrupt learning, but what our community members say in public spaces, including those spaces that are part of our campus, is only subject to discipline if the inflammatory speech intentionally and effectively provokes a crowd to immediately carry out violent and unlawful action, otherwise known as inciting violence. This means that if someone voices hateful views, the only appropriate response that can come from the community takes the form of disagreement, rejection, or offering alternative, or even ignoring the hateful statements which may not deserve our attention. Now that you've been presented with the codes of conduct, I have two questions for you. Number one, does calling for the genocide of the Jewish people, or any group of people, constitute a violation of these universities' codes of conduct? Second question, if you were the presidents of the universities, how would you have responded to this question? Let me know in the comments, and for more nonpartisan news and thought-provoking content, follow me on social media and download the Jordan is My Lawyer podcast.